So today I am delighted in the Off Her Tree podcast to invite Anna Urréjola. I'm not sure if it's completely said like that, but Anna is over in the UK at the moment and has dedicated her life to the practical application of the teachings of A Course in Miracles and has been living at David Hoffmeister's Living Miracles Centre for 7 years. And it is her joy to share the peace that comes from living a life guided by the Holy Spirit. So thank you so much, Anna, for coming and sharing your journey with us. We met God, I've got no concept of time now, but maybe 5 days ago for the first time and enjoyed a meal together. And I have to say, it was so beautiful to spend time with you and just really hear some of your story. So I think what would be lovely would be to go to the beginning for you, really, like I guess your childhood, your upbringing, and really what brought you to be curious about the Course in Miracles.
Mm, Yeah, I feel like it's been a journey, throughout all my life, really. Uh, my family, my mother and my dad were always very devoted since they were young. And my mom had I feel like my mom has had a deep impact on myself, where she was always very devoted to Jesus. She had a deep experience of his presence. And when she was 28, she handed over her life. And then, then my brothers and I came, and her prayer would always be, I want them to know you like I have. I want them to know you as the love that you are.
Wow.
And so since I was very little, I feel Jesus was always in my life. And my mom would always speak to me about him being love and God being love, not a punishing God like what she had learned.
Mm,
And we grew up Catholic, but I feel like for me it was just like a preparation to really have that relationship with Jesus. And I remember there was this one time when I was very little that my dad saw my brothers and I playing in the garden and laughing and talking to someone. And we were like giggling and running and giggling and running and talking. And then when my dad came out to ask us, what are you doing? Who are you playing with? And we were like, with Jesus. And
wow, that's just giving
we
me
were
goosebumps.
we were tiny. We were tiny, but I feel that Jesus's presence has been with me all my life. And
Mm,
I feel like even when I didn't feel he was there, he's shown me he's been there.
yeah.
Like there hasn't been a moment where he hasn't been there. And of course, like, there are moments where he's more at the forefront of my mind. And I feel like growing up, there was always something in me that I feel like I couldn't really fit or adapt or like the same things that all my friends in school liked, or my cousins, or my, people my age. Like I somehow
Mm,
felt like this calling to God. And yeah, I feel like when I was 16, that was maybe like the first moment that I truly felt Jesus's presence very strongly.
mm,
It was the first time I ever did it, such a long retreat. At that time, it was very long for me, 4 days. And I remember we had a day of silence. And it was the first time I was being just with myself. And I remember that at the end of that day, we had like a prayer. And I felt such joy with Jesus,
mm,
that I feel like that moment really changed everything for me. Like it was like this feeling that I know that only with God I'll be happy.
mm.
Only with Jesus I'll be happy. And yeah, like it was as if my soul was hungry for more of this experience. And I started volunteering in my church and being of service and organizing retreats for younger kids. And like, I feel the closer I would get, the, yeah, like there was a yearning in my heart. That's like how I can call it, like a yearning. Like I discovered I had this deep calling within myself, like there has to be more. And I know there's more. And I know that you are so much more than what I've been told. Like in my mind, like something about suffering and punishment didn't fully make sense, you know. But of course, this was the way I grew up. And I feel like Jesus took me as far as I could. And I went as deep as I could with the faith I was brought in. But yeah, it was like this yearning, like I know there's so much more. Like, you know, my mom and I would speak about the saints, and, you know, she would ask me, what if you are a nun? And I'm like, I think I would love to be a nun, you know, like what's crossing my mind? Like, I think I would like to be a nun. Like, I would tell my mom, imagine just being in communion with God all day long. Who wouldn't want that, you know? And I said to her, if I am a nun, I think I'm gonna be like a cloister nun, you know, the nuns that stay within their cell. And of course, you know, at that point, it was like I was starting to be in love with God,
Well,
in love.
it's the agape love, isn't it? They call it
Yeah,
agape love, and I think from what you've just said there, you had, you know, with Catholicism, you know, as an upbringing, it's like your mum gave you a different perspective on what that love is, and I think as a child who trusts their mum, you know, we trust our parents, if that opening is already there and that ability to see it differently, then it would feel as though, of course, there's going to be more of a communion because there's an allowance, there's a belief. Whereas I think for many, there's that block to it's not accessible and there is suffering and there is punishment, and that is a block to love. So it sounds like your mum gave you amazing grounding to just be really aware that God is love and that's all there is. So how beautiful.
yeah, it's so beautiful, you know. For so
Wow.
many years, I would be fighting with this like upbringing, and my mom would always have worship songs in the car, and I was like, oh, you know what? That there was teenager, I was like, oh, mom, change that music, you know? Like I couldn't fully appreciate, and I wasn't able to fully appreciate her faith for a long time until this moment that I felt Jesus's touch, like Jesus touched my heart. In that moment, it's like everything changes. And I could see what my mom said, and she was like, yeah, like God is first. She would tell me, you have to put God first, and he's first before your father, you know, her husband, first before you even. And I was like, oh, how dare she say something like that, you
I'm
know?
special.
Uh-huh, exactly. And you know, at the moment I couldn't really appreciate or understand. And she always wanted to serve in the church, and I was like, oh, you're abandoning me, you know? Like I couldn't understand until I had the experience myself. And I was like, wow, mom, you were so right. He's everything. He's everything, you know? He like with so much joy, like of course you wanted to give your life to him. Of course you wanted to be in service, because I have felt what it is. And once the spirit touches your heart, it's like you can't be the same.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Like
think obviously
everything.
most people are searching outside of themselves and they think it's in the world and it's in this relationship, or and actually it's just your direct relationship and experience of that, and nothing else is ever going to take the place of that. So the retreat that you went on, what kind of a retreat was it? Was it actually like a Christian retreat, or was it just something else and Jesus sort of came through?
Yeah, it was a Catholic retreat. I was preparing for my confirmation. In the
Okay.
Catholic faith, you do like your first communion and then your confirmation.
Mm,
You're basically saying, yes, I choose Jesus and this path, you know.
mm-hmm,
So it was in preparation for that. I was in this preparation for over 10 months, I think,
mm-hmm.
around 10 months. And it was opening my heart so much, you know,
So it's
because this
just, this is at
is,
16
yes,
years old.
this is at
Wow.
16. I feel like that was a turning point in my life.
Mm. So how did the Course in Miracles come along?
Yeah,
What happened with that? Because obviously the teachings in the Course in Miracles are a little bit different to the Bible.
yes.
I mean, there's definitely some similarities, but there's a lot
Absolutely.
of differences as well. So how did that come along, and what was it in the course that spoke to you?
Yeah, well, the course came to me when I was 23, 24.
Okay.
And it was thanks to a friend, really, like he was my teacher in university. He was teaching me drawing, anatomical drawing. And he
Okay.
was an amazing teacher. And, you know, I was learning so much in his class. And at the end of the semesters, he offered me a job in his company to come and work for him. And to
Mm,
me, it was like amazing. Like, he's so talented, and he was working with his sister, and they're both so talented, and they needed more help. So I said, yes, you know, I'm coming to work. And I started working as a designer. And at the beginning, it was all about that. But at some point, you know, in our lunch meetings, we just started opening about our relationship with God. And like the conversations kept going deeper and deeper. And he mentioned, you know, my path is A Course in Miracles. And I would hear the name
oh.
and I was like, oh no, that's so weird. Like, that's not for me. You know, that's not for me at all. And I would just hear him, you
Mm,
know, like accept him. That's his path, wonderful, but that's just not for me, you know.
mm.
But I feel like at that point, I was making this judgment without really understanding.
What was the judgment? Just to understand, like,
Like,
what was
this is
your
weird.
perception?
This is
It's
weird.
weird, but what
Yeah.
was weird about it? Was it the name of it, or did you actually understand what
The
some of it was
name,
about?
I feel it was the name
Mm. Sounded
mainly.
like a little bit new age science, kind of
Yes.
Christian science stuff, yeah.
Yes, and I was very, it was very different. You know, the country I was raised in is very conservative. So
Mm.
you barely hear anyone that has a different faith, you know.
Because you're from
Barely.
Guatemala, that's what
Yes.
we've not got that in here yet, but yeah, from
Yeah, I'm from
Guatemala.
Guatemala,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
So, but you know, we started having these beautiful conversations with them. And, you know, but that wasn't it. Like the conversations were beautiful, of course. And we both had a love for God, a very deep love for God. And I really could connect with him in that way because I felt the same way. You know, it
Mm,
just looked a little bit different at that point. But I feel that what really opened my mind to it wasn't really the words he was saying, but it was his gaze, like his eyes.
oh.
I remember there was a time that it was very difficult for him. And he was going, like his whole life was falling apart. Like, I don't know, like he was having all this trouble at work and with his partner and with his car. And like everything just seemed very chaotic in his life at that moment. And I remember, you know, seeing him and struggling. And I was just there, you know, just working, and I would just see him. And I remember, like, after a couple of weeks that I didn't see him, there was like this shift. And when I came back and I saw him, like his eyes were in absolute peace and quiet. And I was like, whoa, I have never been exposed to anything even close to that. You know, I was like, what is that? Like, what is this? Like, I want this. I want this peace that I see in you. And he's like, oh, well, I'm really going into the course now. I really want to put God first, not as this beautiful idea, but as an experience. And I was like, wow, you know, this is incredible. Like there's nothing I want more. And I feel like that's what touched me really.
Yeah.
His eyes and the peace. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "A Course in Miracles." And I was like, ugh. I said, "Listen, there's like this 30-day program that gives you a little introduction to the course. Why don't you try it out? See what you feel with it. If you don't like it after these 30 days, you just let it, you just leave it. But at least you had a little look at what it is." And when I started this program, there was something really deep happening. I couldn't tell you what was happening, but I feel there was, in this program, there were like several lessons that you could read. And there was this one lesson from the course, from the workbook, that says, God does not forgive because he has never condemned. And that just completely, blew my mind. Blew my mind. This thought was going against everything I had believed my whole life. Yet it felt so loving and so true. And like that sentence, like there were many others that just kept opening my heart, opening my heart. I was like, wow, finally I'm finding the depth that I've been searching for. I couldn't find, like as if my soul was being fed for the first time or something. Like I've
Well, I
been
think there must be something in the fact that, the nothing to forgive is a huge release from the shackles of the mind, because as you're trying to reach God, or, on the path, if one of the blocks is I'm a miserable sinner and I did this and I did that, and then obviously it's going to be very tricky to undo those blocks, love, because there's no forgiveness of self. And it feels like such a fast track out to know that, to know, okay, there isn't anything else apart from that, and the rest is an illusion. Thank God.
Thank God. I know.
Thank God.
Like
Yeah.
our innocence remains untouched by anything that seems to happen. Right?
Hi. Great timing.
Playtime.
Oh, amazing. So when so obviously you discovered the course and you were like, okay, I'm in. You've got me now. So how did you how did things progress with that, and when did you end up at the is it the monastery in
Yes,
the monastery
yes,
with
yes.
David
It was
Hoffmeister?
like I feel Jesus really intercepted quickly. I finished university. My idea was I'm gonna finish and go for a master's degree, blah blah blah. And during that time, that's when I found the course and I started doing the lessons because I find it much easier than reading the text at that point. And I was just doing the lessons. And it was in less than a year that I was already living in the monastery, living in community.
Wow.
And by the time I came to community, maybe I had read till lesson 80. I have maybe read 2 or 3 chapters of the textbook. It was not at all like an intellectual understanding of anything because I didn't have it, but there was a strong feeling inside. And I had experiences where somehow like I needed to follow my heart. Like it wasn't like what my mind was telling me, but I needed to follow what I felt, even though it made no sense. I feel that when the opportunity came to come to the monastery, it was an answer to a very, very, very deep prayer that I had to know God, to really experience, to know that He's closer than my breath. I wanted to know. I wanted to truly experience. And yeah, it was very fast, very fast. Like, I don't know, like probably the call was so strong and I was so ready to jump, you know.
So when you got to the monastery, were you just there for, what was it, like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and then it just didn't go home?
It was, at first I came for 2 weeks, and that was in February of 2017. I got the course in May 2016. So in February of 2017, I just came for 2 weeks, like a little stay, just to see if I liked it, to see if, and I remember when I walked in the house, I was like, wow, I'm home. And the feeling was so strong that I was meant to be there, right? And I remember I went back to Guatemala, and every day I would think about going back, you know, like I want this experience again. Like I really would love to live there and be with others that have the same devotion as me. I want to go deeper. And yeah, and in July 1st, I was there, An invitation came to me to come and join the guys there. And yeah, I was there at the beginning. I thought I'm just going for 6 months, this is just temporary. I'm gonna go for 6 months. I'm gonna go back to my life, my own apartment, my job, like everything. So when I said I'm leaving my job, I said, well, it's just 6 months, like it's so good. And as I started having my first weeks there and my first experiences there, it quickly became clear that I really felt at that point, I am so meant to be here and there's nowhere else I'm meant to be. Like with a total certainty, my mind was in total rest, that there was no thought that I should be home, I should be there, that like somehow already there was a commitment to the experience that I was having and I just wanted to keep opening up.
And were there any thoughts around sort of family obligation and how it would be perceived? Because I guess, when we're on a path, it's like, okay, there's the pull, but then obviously the mind wants to say, but you can't do this because you've got a mortgage and you've got children and whatever your life situation is, and I've got aging parents and I've got to be there for them, and it's like it's that world stuff versus the, as you say, the prayer of your heart. So how did you navigate that?
Yeah, the calling was so strong, so strong. And like this quote from this nun comes to me right now. Like she said, like, promise me that you'll take care of my parents, and of my
Wow.
family. Like if I give my life to you, promise you'll take care of them. And I feel like in a way, like that was my prayer. Like if I put you first, show me that you're taking care of them and show me that I cannot take care of them better than what you can, And the arrogance to think that we can take care of them better than what God can,
Yeah.
thinking that we are meant to be the providers of that. And of course, certain moments we may be called to this. I'm not saying that. For me, in this case, it was like I have to follow my heart. And I know that by following my heart is the greatest blessing I can do for everyone, the whole world, not only my family, but like all the world, because it's like in this alignment with God, it's like it's all being healed, it's like going towards the light. And that's the greatest blessing I can give. Of course, at the beginning, it was hard for me, to step away, and the guilt would come. And it was my brother was getting ready to get married, and at that time it's like all the bridal showers and all the parties, and I wasn't there, and the guilt would come up, and the thoughts of I'm not being a good daughter, I'm not being a good sister. The guilt would come, and my parents would just reflect like all my doubt, you know all the thoughts. But there was a point that I could really see that they were just reflecting my own thoughts, like, and I had to move through them, you know. And
Yeah.
I feel like it was beautiful because once my conviction grew stronger, like the reflections from them changed completely, and it was really like this experience. There's nothing outside of my mind. They're not outside my mind. And yeah, but it was like all done through like a lot of, it was like an authentic healing, it wasn't just saying, oh, everything's an illusion and repeating that phrase and
Yeah.
hoping the emotions would go away. No, I was struggling.
Yeah. Because
I
it's
was
easy to
struggling.
bypass. It's easy to
Yes.
bypass and think that you're doing the work when there's nothing really happening to just go, okay, it's an illusion, they're not real, or I think it's quite easy to get trapped into that unless you are really being guided in the correct way of how
Yeah,
to hand those thoughts over and how to have the mind healed, which essentially is having them witnessed and
yeah,
feeling those
yes.
deep
So,
those
yeah,
deep emotions that nobody wants to go near.
exactly. Nobody wants to go near these emotions, but
No.
it was such an authentic path, like of healing, of going through the darkness,
Yeah.
of going through all these dark emotions, um, crying, feeling sadness, allowing myself for the first time to feel sadness, to feel grief, to feel guilt, to feel all these different things that were coming up, and being so honest about it, not like trying to sugarcoat it. And to me, this path hasn't been, it's been the bravest thing I've ever done, the hardest thing I've ever done, because
Yeah.
we've always been wanting to run away from these emotions, these feelings, and these thoughts. But really, like, we can't run away from them. Like, wherever you are, they are going to come up, and we're meant to go through them and have a new interpretation with Jesus. And like, I feel like that's like the new way that the course is giving us, like an opportunity to change our mind about what we are perceiving. If I perceive that my parents are suffering, then like doing the work with that. And like,
Yeah.
with this situation is bringing up guilt, or is bringing up fear or sadness or whatever it is, and just being so honest and saying like, Jesus, this is what you have to work with. Like, help
Yeah.
me change my mind, help me have a new interpretation of this that I'm experiencing. And yeah, like every time that we open up to a miracle in our mind, like the release that comes from seeing that we were wrong, that there was a way of seeing that brings peace instead of the reaction that we're having with the situation.
Yeah, and I think there's something, I mean, I've definitely got better at this now as things come up, and especially what's happening in my reality in the story. There's less, sometimes we'll still get caught up in things, but even so, quite quickly, I'm like, oh, hang on a minute, what am I believing? Because I must be believing something if it's arriving.
Mm,
Um, and absolutely seeing that it's the willingness to say, okay, this is happening in my mind. I am feeling jealous. I've got attack thoughts. I'm suspicious. Whatever that is. And just being able to be like, Jesus, can you just witness this with me? And it's that honesty to go there, not to try and not look at it or blame somebody else for it, or just completely, try and distract. It has to be felt, doesn't it? Because otherwise you're just going to see it somewhere else, maybe not there, but it'll come in another person, or it'll come in another scenario.
exactly. And this is so big because we've been like trained to think that if something else outside of us was different, we would be happy. And we're demanding everything to change and be the way we want it to be so that we can be happy and at peace. And, this is massive to be able to say, listen, I want to be so wrong about the way I'm seeing this. No,
Yeah.
this person does not need to change. But if we put the power outside, as if something outside of me has to change, then we're like, we lose it. There's no way we can find that peace. And then we become helpless and powerless. On the moment that we say, no, actually, I want to align to the spirit and like not want anything to change outside of me, but to really find the change within and find acceptance for whatever is happening outside, or like, to me, that's like massive, like, oh,
It's the biggest part
we're
of it,
really
it
wrong.
feels.
Yeah,
That's the healing, isn't it? It's the
it is.
healing, and the radical acceptance, the response, taking the responsibility as your own projection,
Exactly.
And also these thoughts are not bringing me peace, therefore they can't be real. They
Yeah.
can't be mine. Or they just can't be, yeah. They're not loving, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely not for the faint-hearted, but well worth it because
Completely worth it.
how many times would you say you nearly left? I mean, because obviously you're on this journey, you are kind of coming in and out of two thought systems, and you can be feeling like, oh, amazing, I'm out now, da 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 da, and then whoom, and you're back in again. And sometimes it feels a little bit like, you're going mad, or there's, like feeling in a washing machine. So, did you find that there were times where you were like, what have I done? This is just, I shouldn't, I really wish I hadn't done this. And how much do you get pulled in now, or does it not tend to happen now?
Yeah, I feel like I have faced really deep darkness.
Mm,
Absolutely. And of course, in those moments, it's like almost like despair, like
mm,
the dark night of the soul. Like I feel like we all go through it.
yeah.
And in those moments, it's as if the sun, the sun being God, it's like flips by all these like darkness, and you
Mm,
can't feel God, you can't sense Him. And then you feel like, oh my God, is this ever going to change or be different? And yeah, I feel like I've been in this point many times, but I don't feel there was ever a point where I said, I won't do this, because of course, it was very difficult going through whatever I was going through. And it was dismantling what I thought I was, what thought I was my safety, my security, and like to really breaking these things so I would find the truth underneath
mm-hmm,
them. It's not easy. I would say not easy at all. But I feel in these times the faith was so important. Feel like every time while I was going through these very dark moments, there was always like angels being sent around me, like I was just never left.
mm,
And I would recognize the spirit helping me through my friends, my companions in the path. And that's been so important, because sometimes I will be in such darkness and I couldn't see
mm,
beyond. And I could stay there like, days, weeks. But, like my companions, my friends in the path would just be, they were like, we are not buying this. Like, we
mm,
not rejecting me, not saying like, oh, you should be different, or like you need to snap out of it or something, but just so much love and acceptance that, just that tender, loving care around you. I feel like that's been so huge for me to move through these big
yeah,
things. And of course, like Jesus has done like everything to help me.
yeah,
And I feel like that, the deeper the darkness, the deepest a miracle that has come as well once I've gone through it. So it's like really like
yeah,
when it comes very dark, it's time for faith. Like keep the faith, keep taking your steps, and just there were moments that it was so dark that the only thing I could barely say, and not even full heartedly, was like help,
mm,
like help. I couldn't even pray,
mm,
help, help me, help me, help me. And I feel every time there was a sincere prayer for help, something would come.
mm,
Even sometimes like a song or a message, or someone would come and tell me something, or even through social media. I had a few big miracles just by looking at social media posts. Yeah, but I feel like the spirit, every time I was in a deep place of darkness, he would help me out. And I feel that, this path is like a lifelong devotion,
mm-hmm,
like devotion to the truth. And I have no idea. You know, I feel like I'm still healing and I'm still going through my lessons. Um, yeah, I just want to, you know, remain in this humbleness,
Mm.
actually. I feel that's the most important thing, like to remain in this humbleness that no, I actually have no idea until I pass the test of perfect peace, you know.
It's interesting when you have the miracles and beautiful things happen, and then it feels like more darkness, and then light, and then darkness, and then light, and it's felt for me as though those periods have got shorter and shorter, and even though you know you'll come out the other side, when it's taken over, it's so hard to remember.
Yes.
It's so hard to remember that you will come out of it, and that it's just part of the journey. Because it's just like, oh God, again, we're here again. But it does feel as though they get shorter, the periods.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and there's just that faith that comes through the whole of it, and the beautiful things that arrive from the other side. So it's beautiful. So obviously you have been traveling, haven't you, for how long have you been traveling across
Uh,
Europe?
Right now, since July, so like 7 months or so.
Okay. And excuse me, what was the guidance on that? Was it a decision that you thought, okay, this feels like what I want to do, or had you made a prayer, or was it like very much a voice of this is what you're gonna do? How did that happen?
Yeah, I feel like I was in the point, like in a point in my life where I was like, I feel that like a chapter had ended, and it was like this moment, like, Jesus, what would you have me do? Like, I have no idea, you know.
Mm,
And I would always join in prayer with my companions. And in one of these, you know, moments of prayer, it was very clear, like the thought came very clear that I was meant to go to Spain. And, you
mm-hmm,
know, this wasn't like Anna's idea at that point at
mm,
all. Like, it was very unexpected. But I knew, you know, and it was like when it came, it was like I trusted. And at the same time, I feel a bit afraid of this.
mm,
And I said to Jesus, Jesus, I want to know that this is what you want from me. Please show me in any way that you can that this is what your will is for me. And I'll follow. You know that I'll follow. I want to follow you. With that prayer, literally the next morning, I received this audio from this lady. We had been offering like an online retreat in Spanish, and this lady had been a participant, and I had just been helping her technically to get the recordings and to, you know, get inside the Zoom room and things like this. And it was like the last message, like the last night I had said, well, thank you, it was beautiful to meet you. Like, to me, that was like the end of our conversation. And it was surprised, like in the morning when I wake up, she has sent this audio to me just saying, you have no idea how grateful I am. I want to tell you that you have a home in Spain. You can come here anytime.
wow.
Like this gorgeous message of love. And I was like, you know, like I couldn't believe it when I heard it. Like, did I had at that point, I hadn't told anyone the guidance that had come in.
Right.
And the next morning, she's like, you are most welcome in my home. You know, my home is your home. Welcome to Spain and everything. Like, and I was like, whoa, you know, this feels like an answer to my prayer.
Mm,
And I felt so happy, you know, because to me, that was like the confirmation that Jesus wanted me to be there. Oh my God, you know, now that I look back, it's like there's no question I was meant to come. There's been so many miracles, heart openings, like so completely necessary for my healing and for my growth. And, you know, once I had this call with this lady and I said, you know, it's like the guidance was come for me to come to Spain. And when I heard your message, she's like, oh my God, I totally mean it. Come and stay at my home. Let's organize something. And, you know, within a week, They had organized like online gatherings for me, a retreat, like a 4-day retreat, and like all these opportunities to share. And like together they were all able to contribute for the funds for the flight, like everything just moved so quickly.
So you didn't finance any of it then?
No, I didn't have any funds at that time.
Wow.
No, I live a life of really like divine providence,
Yes.
and I live by donations, and I don't have an income, but Jesus brings everything I need, and he has done so. For the last 7 years, I haven't worked. I have
Wow.
just fully devoted myself to service, to serving, and to sharing these beautiful teachings, and sharing like the love of God. And I feel like by me giving my life to him, he has taken care of everything else for me, in a beautiful way. Like nothing has been lacking. Not one thing has been lacking. Every time I
Wow.
needed support in some way, it would come in one way or another. And it
Mm.
continues to be that way, like 7 months traveling. And I've been living by donations, and I've been living, Jesus providing everything for me, place
Wow.
to stay, food, and yeah, it's just like living like a nun or a monk, like traveling
Mm. In full
very
faith.
simply,
Full faith.
full faith.
So
Like,
I just wanted to talk about, obviously we had a little chat the other night and I was asking you about some of the metaphysical stuff that you've experienced, and I think it'd be great to just hear about those experiences that you've had. I mean, obviously, getting your flights and your accommodation paid for is pretty good as well. But I think, just for those people that would be really intrigued and to know more about, that stuff that can happen, the more you are connected to God and to Jesus.
there's so many beautiful things. Like, I feel like he's showering me, with these experiences all the time.
Mm,
Like, in general, like, a deep sense of connection, of love, of safety. Not like this internal anxiety, but the complete opposite. Just that to me is like amazing.
yeah,
And of course, I feel that also Jesus has taken my mind very high, in the light. I was telling you these experiences, that there was one where I felt like I was, yeah, like in the universe. And I saw Jesus extending his hand to me and saying to me, I'm calling you out of the world. And it was so, so, so deep. Like, in a way, I feel like these experiences, like they touch you in such a personal way. Like it touches you so, so deep that there's no way, even if I said to you and
to
described to
describe
you
it, yeah,
with words what I felt in that
sure,
moment,
yeah,
but I felt him calling me out of those world, and like a deep, deep call in. And like I felt like as if lightning struck my heart, like so much energy. I felt like my chest was gonna break,
wow,
like so much energy. And I feel as if he was giving me the strength and the faith to go through what I needed to go through.
mm,
And these experiences, like these mystical experiences of feeling like such a deep connection and such a deep fulfillment, like sometimes I will be struck with a love so, so, so big that I could just cry, and
mm,
stop. It's like, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. Like, you are the answer to every question I've ever had. I was seeking you everywhere, and I have found you within, like these
mm,
experiences that have felt so intimate and have given me like a conviction and such a strong faith that I feel they have been like so instrumental for me to be able to go through the darkness when it comes. It's like a huge like surge of inspiration and of strength and of power. Um, yeah, just to help us take our steps. And it's as if, yeah, these experiences just give you like a base and you can't go past it. Like once you felt it, a part of your mind is completely convinced,
Yeah.
and you can't go back to the way you were thinking before. It's just gone. It's like it breaks the limits that you had placed in such a way, and it just expands your mind in such a way that you can't go back to thinking the way you were thinking. It's like this, I don't know, it's like a transformation, I feel.
And I guess it's about as well being able to extend that love to other minds. And it's I certainly feel the presence through you and through David and other people that really have had those experiences, and you can feel it. It's not necessarily in the words. I mean, it is in the words, but it's also in just the conviction and the extending of that love, which is really beautiful. And you're over here now for a little bit longer, so you've got a few events booked in. Do you want to let us know a little bit about what you're doing over the next few weeks, months?
Thank you. Yes. Well, this Saturday, February 1st, I'm
Hmm.
gonna be offering an afternoon gathering. So that feels beautiful. It's gonna be just 4 hours, just a little introduction. The topic is living in divine flow.
Hmm.
And Jesus will provide the specific topic on that day, I feel, but I've been already in prayer about it, and that feels beautiful. And then for whoever wants to go a little deeper or have like like a more experiential opportunity, I'm gonna also be offering like a 2-day event, and that is the next weekend, the 8th
Hmm.
and 9th of February, 2025.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful.
yeah, that's just what I have so far, and we'll
Yeah.
see if more opportunities come to extend.
And are you planning on going back soon to the monastery, or are you gonna keep just see what arrives?
Yeah, I do. I did receive the guidance to go back to Mexico in the
Okay.
monastery on the last day of February. So I already have you know, my flights to Mexico. So, I feel like the last few weeks that I have here, I really want to be used, and I really would love to have, these deep connections, even if it's over coffee, like our dinner, like we had with you, and we had such a
Mm,
lovely time. So, it's like that invitation, or if anyone has a place they could host me,
mm.
I want to spend a few days together, or, organize a gathering. Like, I just feel so open to connecting in any way that feels inspiring.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for this chat, Anna. It's really, really going to be very helpful for anybody else on this journey. And yeah, just thank you so much for coming along.
Mm. Thank you so much, Natalie. What a
Thank
beautiful
you.
gift